Medicare for All is not government health care. Medicare for All just changes how we finance health care.
Hello there, this is Cliff McWilliams with Corporatist Nation. I wanted to speak a little bit about healthcare. I'm a nurse practitioner with an MBA in Health Systems Management, and I've been a candidate for Congress in the past. And I got the offer from a pharmaceutical industry lobbyist back in 2006, and this lobbyist, a guy by the name of Ken, with the pharmaceutical industry, made this offer. Cliff, if you're willing to work with, play ball with the pharmaceutical industry, we'll get you all the contributions that you need. And of course I turned that down. Being someone who knows something about healthcare, I was not about to be bought by the healthcare industry to do their bidding. Of course I didn't win, but nonetheless, that is what we're dealing with when we talk about most of the politicians that are named politicians in this country. As a congressional candidate, I put a lot of work into my policy preparation, and of course, being a healthcare professional and why the pharmaceutical industry would select someone like me to put an offer forward to do their bidding. Of course, I put a lot of work into this in order to look at how we can streamline and make the healthcare system work better for people. And how we can make that healthcare system work better for people, it's not dramatically different from what Bernie Sanders has put forward today. Why is he being obstructed and criticized, and healthcare policy that he puts forward so maligned? Because it will actually work. Medicare is the preferred provider of coverage when you talk about the financing of healthcare, and as providers, what the providers like to do is not have to fight for their money. You never have to fight with Medicare, but you do have to fight with the insurance industry all the time. And I want to be succinct here and tell you that when we talk about Medicare for All, what is being discussed is not what you're told about on television or the radio, the corporate media for that matter. All we're talking about is changing how we finance healthcare, not how we provide it. The VA is the best example of socialized healthcare in this country, as everyone is a veteran that is taken care of there or related, and the providers are all employees of the government. So what we're talking about here is when you hit 65, is everyone is eligible for Medicare. Now, all we're talking about is changing the age level and actually expanding the benefits available from a Medicare program. Bernie Sanders has put together a stepped program starting initially dropping the age of being able to get into Medicare to age 55, be a boon to the economy from the standpoint of less issues with for people who are older and who are maybe keeping their job just so they can keep their health care. But bigger than that is the fact that Americans pay more for health care than any country in the world, and while top-notch outcomes can be the case, we don't rank anywhere near number one in the world by the World Health Organization standards. What I'd like to point out is that the healthcare insurance industry is probably one of the most dysfunctional that anyone ever has to deal with. As a provider, I can tell you that they are obstructive in every respect when you're trying to obtain services or approvals. We always have to get approvals for medications that We prescribe for people, putting healthcare providers on the line or their employees on the line, waiting on the phone for 20 minutes, 30 minutes, an hour, waiting to get through to a representative who may then turn down a very inexpensive medication, but one that the patient needs. Maybe an expensive medication, but again, that's another issue altogether. The bottom line is the American health insurance industry is dysfunctional for a reason. And that reason is you have to think of, how do insurance companies make money? Well, they make money, number one, by not covering people. Number two, by putting in place usurious premiums that cause people not to get insurance. By offering what amounts to catastrophic insurance policies that really are no more than discounting opportunities for services. So people hold off on going to the doctor, and then by the time they actually show up to a provider such as myself or a physician, their illness may have become way more complicated than should have been the case, and sometimes people don't make out very well with that. So the insurance industry needs to be brought to heel on behalf of the American people, and Bernie Sanders is one person to do that. In fact, he's the only candidate that will. Number one, when you're talking about health care, you have to look at the spectrum of candidates we have available, and there is only one that you can really trust in my book. I mean, that's just the case. Look at these people and see who you trust. Who has been consistent in their positions to help the average person and not be bought and paid for, like the offer that I spoke about that I had as a congressional candidate way back quite a few years ago. And there's nothing that's changed today. It's only gotten worse. So this will be my first little discussion on this. I'll get into more details on other topics, but more as well on Medicare for all. And believe me, as a healthcare professional, if we could help people and the system operate more efficiently without the obstacle of the insurance industry, as I just mentioned, then everyone will be much better off. Once again, this is Cliff McWilliams with Corporatist Nation, and I hope you'll check out what I'm putting forward for you to consider when you look at voting in the primary, because the primary is the election for all intents and purposes this time, and there is only one individual that you can trust, and that's Senator Bernie Sanders. I thank you for listening. Once again, this is Cliff McWilliams of Corporatist Nation, because that's what we got.